program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Oshkosh Media, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of On Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, your host, and joining us tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome to the show Anne Strauch. She is a CVA, which is Certified Volunteer Administrator, and she's the Regional Director for Community Circles of Support, a program of Goodwill Industries, North Central Wisconsin. So, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate this.
Thanks for asking.
You and I had scheduled this probably, 3 or 4 months ago already.
I would think.
You know, and it seemed like so far in advance, and all of a sudden I realized this week, hey, it's here already. And I sent you an email and I said, can you believe it? It's already here, so the time really flew. But anyway, thank you very much for being here.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it so much.
Thanks again.
Want to find out what circle or circles of support is. It's circle of support.
Circles of support.
Circles of support. Okay, so, and where does the word community come into play? Is that the official title?
The official title started out as Community Circles of Support.
Okay.
And a lot of times we just shorten it to Circles of Support or Circles.
Okay.
So that's,
all right.
that's
okay.
where we're at with that.
So tell us what Circles of Support is.
Well, Circles of Support is a prison reentry program. So it works with ex-offenders that are just getting released from prison and coming back into the community. And it's volunteer-based. So I'm a director of Circles of Support. We have a volunteer coordinator, and then we have a vocational coordinator. Beyond that, it's approximately 100 volunteers out there working with our participants who come in out of prison. It's also considered a community safety program because by working with these people and helping them transition and adjust back into the community, it does make them more community minded, and it just becomes a success and a win-win for both sides.
Sure. How long has it been in existence?
Circles of Support about 8 years here in the Valley.
Okay.
It started out, as far as we know, in Ohio, or that's where we went and got the knowledge from to get ours started, was from Ohio. And we've tweaked it and changed it quite a bit since then as well. The Ohio model came to us where we would have 6, 7, 8 volunteers encircle one participant, and that participant would be there and then receive the help from all these other volunteers, which was great, and they'd meet on a weekly basis. We found that it works better by having more participants, and say we have 5 participants at a meeting and 5 or 6 volunteers at a meeting. The volunteers very often end up sitting back and listening as the other ex-offenders who are further out, as far as being outside of prison, are helping the other newbies that just come out. So it's an interesting mix. It works very well. Our volunteers are trained, quite well up front as to how to work with the participants. They receive training in motivational interviewing, which is the open-ended questioning. And so with that, they know how to talk with them rather than saying, could you have done that differently? They would instead say, what would you have done differently?
Or how could you have done that differently?
Exactly. And it's a great technique. You can use it on your spouses and on your teens and everything else we found out. So, so they get the motivational interviewing. They have basic training. They have cultural awareness training, mental health training, and that's ongoing. As NAMI offers different trainings, I always offer it up to our volunteers to go and attend those trainings. So we have, you know, quite a bit there for them. We've got some resource training, and I'm always there for them. You know, if they have questions or anything else, I can be there to help the volunteers with that.
Sure.
Now, the participants will come to the weekly meeting, and if when they're first out, very often they need a little more help than that, and so volunteers almost become like mentors. They'll help them out, you know, initially with some rides or helping them get that ID that they need in order to get working, or we'll help them with their driver's license or different things like that, or get the clothes. Some of them come with basically just the clothes on their back and no winter coats, and so we'll help them with some of that. We've got donations, we've got, you know, money's available, mission money through Goodwill as well. So Goodwill has been so supportive of this program.
You said that you went to Ohio, you know, to kind of get some of this information. Is the name still the same there?
They looked to Ohio, and Ohio sent information back. I believe it was called Circles of Support. That was right before I started.
Is it a part of Goodwill Industries around the country?
No. No.
Okay.
It's unique, actually, to Goodwill NCW, North Central Wisconsin. I get calls from other Goodwills, you know, around the country.
Sure.
And some of them do have transition programs. It's not quite set up like ours is with the volunteer base that we have. And I've had calls from Canada, from Alaska, Tennessee, all over. Southern Wisconsin, where we aren't, you know, different areas like that. And everybody wants information. How do I get it going? How do I get it started? And, you know, we just don't have the hands to share that much. We could be doing it daily. So.
But you could, I guess, you know, put them in touch with the circles of support that you originally got the information from, couldn't you?
If they're still, I haven't kept up with them at all since we got going, and we got ours changed, you know, a little bit, and I've been with them for about a little over 5 years, and they started, as I said, about 8 years ago. And they started out with Jim Miller is his name, and he was the regional director for community corrections for Region 4, and that's, you know, probation and parole. And Jim was retiring, and he said, doggone, you know, we really need something for these guys that are getting out of prison. The agents are overworked, probation, parole agents are overworked. And he was a part of another committee with a group of people that were looking at what can we do for people that are transitioning out. And with that, they came up with the idea. They found out about Ohio and put that idea together and just started going from there. But then they realized that they really needed a little bit more support, and so they went to Bob Peterson at Goodwill, and he's the CEO of our Goodwill, and he's on our main campus here in Menasha, and Bob welcomed them, and he said, let me see what I can do for you, and they were given some office space, but it was a lot of fundraising, you know, to pay for everything else, and eventually it did become a program of Goodwill NCW, so they do a lot of matches for us, and we couldn't do it without it being a program of Goodwill. We could, but we couldn't be as successful as we are.
Well, I was going to say, you know, where you're located, excuse me, still dealing with bronchitis. Anyone who's a regular watching this show knows that I've been dealing with this for a month now, at least. So forgive me if I have to, you know, clear my throat or if I start coughing. But anyone who is familiar with Goodwill Industries here in north central Wisconsin, I think knows that you guys, is it on Appleton Road in Menasha?
On Appleton Road in Menasha is
the
our
big
main
one that
campus.
you see off of Highway 441.
Right, our corporate campus and retail store.
And anyone familiar with that location knows that you guys do a tremendous amount of things there. There are so many different community programs and offerings that either are supported by that office or actually have office space there. it's amazing, and I mean that could take up another whole show in and of itself.
Easily.
But I can easily see where, you know, Goodwill Industries of North Central Wisconsin would have taken this on, you know, and been
It's the
very
mission.
happy to take it on because it fits in so nicely with everything else that Goodwill Industries does.
It does. It fits the mission. And, you know, Goodwill does have 29 programs and services. As you were saying, they've got many, 29 right now. And it's an amazing nonprofit. So it's really important that people do support the local Goodwill by shopping there and by donating, because things are not wasted. You can donate, and we make sure we take just about anything at
Sure.
this point, and
Sure.
we are able to work with it and make some more money for our mission program. So it's really important that people remember to shop and donate at Goodwill.
And I want to get into that in more depth later, talking about your needs as an organization, financial, volunteer-wise, and so forth. But that brings up a question. If someone wants to make a donation to Goodwill, but for a specific program, like Circles of Support, how do they go about doing that? Do they say Goodwill Industries, and in the note or the memo section say Circles of Support? Do you have an actual, like on your website or your Facebook page, is there a place there that can receive donations specifically for your cause, or how does that work, Anne?
There's many different ways. They can just send the check right to Goodwill, which is 1800 Appleton Road.
But do they have to specify?
And on the bottom of the check, they can say for the Circles of Support program.
Okay.
Or prison reentry program. If they can't remember Circles of Support, they can
Okay.
put that as well. Or they can just send a check right for Circles of Support, which would then be turned over to Goodwill and put into the budget, you know, specific to
Okay.
Circles of Support. Or they can also go to the Goodwill website, and they can also go to the Circles of Support website. So we've got, you know, several
A lot of
different ways.
And if someone just makes a donation to Goodwill, then it's just going to Goodwill as the parent organization, if you will, and then as different groups need money, it's farmed out that way?
More or less, I'm not the expert in this area.
Right,
But they do have, you know, every program has its budget that they work on yearly with their senior president or vice president of programs and services, Keith Wilk. And, you know, from there I know about how much I'm going to need, and can I self-sustain. Some may need more help than others, and others self-sustain. So,
Sure.
But Goodwill is there, and, you know, looks at all the needs in order to keep these programs successful and going.
How much is your operating budget for this program on an annual basis?
Right now, we've lowered it, so I'm hoping this is going to work, but it should be around $225,000 for the year.
Okay.
For an
That's,
annual.
I mean, you know, someone listening might say, wow, that's a lot of money, but I think when I do a lot of shows on nonprofit organizations, and I think that that's a pretty reasonable amount of money for everything that you're doing.
Well, part of it, what people don't understand, goes to, a good part of it goes to work experiences for those that are transitioning. So it helps get them off the ground.
Sure.
And they come in, they have absolutely nothing, and they're able to work up to about 20 hours a week. Some are maybe in the retail stores, some may be at our distribution center, and others may be with our WOW program, which I can explain later as we go.
Did you say WOW program?
WOW program,
Okay,
World
all right.
of Work program.
Okay.
And so it goes to, you know, the job programming for them as well. And then we also have several other items available for them, such as the bus passes, the different clothing closets that we have, and different, you know, Goodwill vouchers, and maybe steel-toed boots. Somebody will get a job on Friday or get offered a job on Friday. You can start on Monday. Well, they can't get access to any other programs at that point
Sure.
that might be able to help them get those boots. So we'll help them get a starter pair of boots so that they can start that job on Monday and get going right away. So there's a lot involved in the budget, you know, but as I
course.
said, the work experiences
Of course.
are
So let's talk about the program and how, who it's really serving. Is anyone who is about to be released from prison eligible for this? Okay, so what are the eligibility requirements?
Okay. Well, first of all, they have to be, they can't be max discharged, which means they're released, they're free, they're not on supervision, they've served their whole term. So they have to be on state supervision with the Department of Community Corrections. They have to be ready and want to change and want to work with us, because our volunteers put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and there's a lot of work involved and passion involved, and we want to make sure that that person has an equal passion, to work equally as hard at the beginning and then harder than us after. So, at the beginning we might have to work a little bit harder as volunteers to just, get them going, but after that we expect them to be part of it. So if they think they're just going to come out and call us and say, well, I need a job and I need, some shoes and I need a coat and this and that, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's been tried, but our volunteers, are there to work with them as far as their criminal thinking patterns and work with them changing those criminal thinking patterns. And if they're not willing to do that themselves, if they just want to jump right back in with the old friends and the old way of doing things, then they don't fit into our program. So those are the basic criteria right there, is state supervision and a willingness to want to. Actually, I've got something right here. I think I might have even given it to your cameraman there.
Yeah, it was difficult to bring this up because it was in a Word document, but go ahead and read. Sure.
This is something that we ask them to look at when we do an intake. So when they first get out, we do an intake with them for about an hour and a half. The volunteers do. And with that intake, they go over this pledge, and it's I pledge to attend Circles of Support meetings for at least 6 months, every week for 6 weeks, and at least twice per month thereafter. Usually once they get going on that every week, then we find that they'll continue going that way.
Okay. I
I accept responsibility for my past criminal behavior and acknowledge the harm my past criminal behavior has caused others. With that, I had one fellow say to me, you can't reject me, you can't turn me down, why would you do that? And I didn't even do this crime, I'm innocent. And I said, well, okay, and it's very possible he was. Maybe he was innocent, but then he doesn't fit our criteria either, does he? We were looking at serving people to help change their criminal thinking, and if he's innocent, well, then he doesn't have to change anything. He doesn't, and so we were trying to explain that to him. Put forth effort to work towards all mutually agreed upon plan of success recommendations. So they sit down and they put together a plan, and then they review the plan as time goes on. And so they have to be willing to do that as well. Avoid talking about what other participants discuss. So that's the, let's keep it right here. Don't share outside. Not interfere with or confront Circles volunteers outside the activities. Now what we're saying there is really it's the volunteers that kind of stand back because they don't want to go up to, a participant, say in Walmart or wherever they might see them, and they let that participant do the wave first or the hi and the acknowledgement.
Okay.
Understand that volunteer members will maintain open communication. We stay working as close as we can with the agents. So with a participant's agent, if there's anything that's sad, that they let us know. We make it very clear at the intake that if they're letting us know this, that we will be communicating with the agent. And so we're all working together on this. And we can't work together very well if we can't be transparent. So we want them to understand that as well. And then there's a confidential release that's signed, and that's pretty much it, but we're telling them right then and there that there's transparency issues, that if we know that you showed up drunk, we will have to share that with the agent. Oftentimes we'll give them the opportunity to do it first, and then if it hasn't been done, then we will.
Is there a limit on how many people you can take into the program?
We haven't really found that yet, because if we're finding that we have too many, what we've done is broke broke up the group into two smaller groups, and so the Fox Valley alone, Neenah, Menasha, and Appleton have 5 groups.
Oh, okay.
You know, it started out as 1, and it just keeps growing in that way. So we really like to keep the numbers down if we can to maybe about 5 participants, but sometimes, you know, by keeping a number of maybe 8 or 9, because some weeks you might have less and other weeks more.
Sure. How soon before they're released do you or someone else from Circles of Support start working with them?
We do not work with them before release.
Okay.
And that's one thing that we're very, very cautious about. There's, you know, boundary issues, there's other issues, fraternization issues. So we make sure that we first start working with them maybe day 1 when they get out, or it might even be 6 months later when they get out that they finally say, we're ready now, or the agent says, are you ready now? You know, and then we start working with them at that point.
Okay, so nothing beforehand.
Except one occasion, or 2 or 3 occasions actually, where the agents did a video conference with somebody. Somebody was being released, and remember, a lot of times they're released and they have no one. They're released out into a community where they did their crime, and so there's no family member, there's no one that they know. And so our volunteers will go in and do a video conference maybe 10 days before they release, just so that they have that connection.
And are there people who have committed certain crimes that would not be eligible for this kind of program? I mean, could they have committed any kind of crime as long as they're getting out, and they want to do this?
And they meet this criteria.
And they're willing to sign the pledge.
And they're on supervision. State supervision, not federal, but state supervision. No, they really are supposed to be a priority 1 or 2 as far as recidivism when they're ranked on this compass that they do, this assessment, and they're supposed to be medium to high. So if they're a lower level, like a risk 3, then, you know, we were told, please, or we feel like we should stick with the 1 and 2, because we've been told if you mix those with a very low risk of recidivism with the higher population as far as higher criminal thinking population, that's not a good mix.
Okay. So the program's about 8 years old now, at least in this area. So do you guys have some kind of data that you've accumulated to show what the recidivism rate is here in north central Wisconsin?
We do. It's not always easy to get.
I'm sure. Yeah, I can imagine.
It's really hard. But I have a spreadsheet probably about like this right now, where it keeps growing as I add new things in, and as we're tweaking forms for the volunteers to do on a weekly basis with weekly attendance, and then we pull information from that. Right now we're finding recidivism rate is about 15%, so about 85% success here, you know, and that's very good when you look at the general rate is what, 52%?
It's pretty high.
And so we're doing very well, but again, we've got participants for the most part who say, yes, I want to come, I want to participate, I need somebody to help me. But we do understand too that there's these stages of change. So it's trying to help the new volunteer understand they're so passionate and they jump in and they're trying so hard to help that just slow down. There'll be stages of change. There'll be times when the person will go back a couple steps. They might go back into jail for a weekend. They might have a beer. They might have something on their breath or whatever, or they'll take a step back. And they'll come back out, and maybe we'll lose somebody along the way, and they'll just not show up anymore and they'll be gone. And if that happens, don't take that personally. You've planted that seed. You know, they know that there was somebody there that helped, that cared to help. And at some point, somebody's going to get to sow. You get to plant. Sometime you might sow what somebody else planted, right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. And do you work only with the State Department of Corrections, or do you also, if someone, I know that jail is typically for a year or less. I've heard of and seen cases where they've been there longer than a year. But are you only working with people from the state prison system?
No.
Okay.
Some come from the jail and they're on state supervision. So they're with the Department of Community Corrections. They're on probation and parole, extended supervision, actually.
Yeah, that's what it's called now.
Right, right. And
Such
so,
an interesting term for it.
yeah, extended. But you know, in some ways, I think it's really a good thing. When they come out, they have the hands of the agents and the help of different community resources that otherwise they might not have. When they're max discharged, they're let go, goodbye. And, you know, there's a lot of people that can't help them then. They don't have the resources that the agent would have for them. They have nothing. And so I really think the extended supervision is probably a good thing for many.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that this is a wonderful program, and we did a show, we taped a show 2 weeks ago, and as we're taping this, in fact, it's still airing, and it was a very special program because not just On Oshkosh, a special program, but a special program that where there is a nonprofit that is working with inmates at the local prison only, where they are training service dogs to then be released to people with PTSD and that kind of thing. And, you know, I see programs like this on television where they show people in prisons who are really doing some good things with their lives. Are some of them maybe just, you know, putting on a good show? Maybe. But I think for the most part, you know, I mean, I try to think that there's good in everybody. I realize that some, I can't find a redeeming quality in them at all. And I'm talking about people like, you know, Son of Sam or Charles Manson, you know. I mean, it's tough. No matter what their mental issues may be, it's tough for me to find a redeeming quality in a person like that. But they're the exception. And I think by and large, people who are in prisons, with some exceptions, and I'll make that disclaimer again, I think by and large, people have they've gotten caught up with the wrong people. And are associating with the wrong people, or they're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or they've just flat out made bad choices. That doesn't make them a bad person. And so I like programs like this where it's holding them accountable for what they've done, and yet it's helping get them back into society so that hopefully they're not making those mistakes or poor choices again. And so, you know, I commend you and your staff of however large it is, and your 100 approximately volunteers, you know, for working as hard as you do on this. And I would applaud the inmates as well, you know, because it's a step forward that they're taking.
Oh, you wouldn't believe what some of them are facing when they come out.
Tell us about some of the challenges
some of the challenges and
have.
frustrations and everything. You know, they come out and maybe they're being released to an area where they do have some friends but no family, but these friends are the old friends that haven't changed. And so now, you know, they've got to try to stay away from that group of friends, and they end up isolating because they don't know what to do next, and they're afraid, and it's hard to be accepted socially, and it depends on their crime. So if they have a sex crime, that's really difficult, because then they have to be careful about wherever they go. Even if they go to church, they may, depending on the type of crime, may need a chaperone, you know, to go to the bathrooms. We had our very first recreational outing the other night. The Timber Rattlers were just wonderful and donated to us a suite. So we were able to bring along 12 participants, and we had them there, but we had 3 male chaperones as well. So whenever they went to the bathroom, they would go with them, because this is a kid place, you know, and so we just made sure we did that. And so we were all pretty contained, but we had the chaperones. We had one fella that said he had never been to a baseball game, and he was from Wisconsin. We had another fella that I don't think had ever been either, because he was asking, you know, how many quarters were there. And then he said, is it
Yeah,
8?
that's someone who's never been to a ball game before.
Right,
Yep,
right.
yep.
And another one that was just so thrilled. He gave me his camera and he said, just take pictures of me doing everything. So he had pictures of everything in this little suite, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just great to be able to have that time. And they don't have that. They don't have enough time or enough places that they can go and be accepted. And so that's tough for them. Housing is tough. It's not as tough in the Fox Valley and Oshkosh, believe it or not, as it is in Green Bay, because Green Bay has their ordinance as far as their residency ordinance. So that is tough. If they've got a sex offense, they have to go in front of the Sex Offender Registration Board, which only meets once a month. So we had one person that saved up the little bit of money that they had from Social Security, found an apartment, put the $500 down on the apartment, and then couldn't get on the agenda for the board for another month and a half, and ended up losing that $500 because she couldn't get in when she was when we expected her to get in. And so there she was, you know, and she only made minimal as far as Social Security, and she was trying to work, but she was having a hard time finding a job. She had a lot of mental health problems. And Goodwill will take these people on for the most part and help them with a job, but if they do have a theft within the last 2 years on their record, then that's something we have to wait on for bringing them on as well. So that's a little tough. They have other frustrations as far as, you know, like I said, the work, the social, the housing, meds. Medical is a real tough one, especially if they get out of jail and they're released from jail and they don't have enough medications. And in jail, maybe they finally were put on something that's working for them, and they're released with a week's worth of medications, and they can't get into a psychiatrist or a psychologist or anybody for a good 6 weeks, 2 months. So what happens? Now they're on these meds, they're finally steady, and after 1 week they no longer have their meds, and their mental illness comes back full force, and they recommit, and they're back in.
Okay, so I have a question then about that.
So do I.
Because, I mean, that just seems like another whole can of worms. So I know that in local jails there are nursing people who can get in touch with doctors, who can prescribe certain things. Here we've got a state institution. Why, I mean, don't they have nurses and people who can access a psychiatrist or someone who can at least give them enough medication to get them over that hump until they can get in to see someone?
You'd think?
Well,
I don't mean to sound that way, but I mean that exactly. You're framing
it. Is that too simple of a solution?
You're framing it just right.
Does it make too much common sense?
You're framing it just right, and you know it's interesting because we've got a really good working relationship with the captain of the jail in Outagamie County, and just sat down with him last week and said it seems like, you know, we had moved forward and we're able to get enough medications to these people. And now they're released with 1 or 2 weeks, and he's working really hard again on that effort to see if they can give them more when they are released. You know, the one thing, I did sit on the county board in public safety for quite a while myself, and in public safety we saw that, you know, we just have so many psychiatrists that are available and such minimal time, so they couldn't get in for a couple months. Well, you'd say, this is important, let's bump them in. And if you do that, you might be bumping out that single mom that has 3 children to take care of, and suddenly she's not getting the help she needs to be able to continue with her meds. And so we just don't have enough right there at this point yet as far as the help out there for them. It's getting better though, you know, with our community health clinics and things like that, it is getting better.
Yeah, because I would think it doesn't, I mean, in my mind, it shouldn't have to be where you're bumping someone else out of their appointment or whatever. Just, hey, you know that they're on these meds. You know that these meds are controlling their behavior in a good way. It's just common sense that, hey, you get a hold of someone who can write a script for an extra month or 3 weeks or whatever the case may be.
There's different reasons that they're having problems with that, and I'm not going to speak to it because I'm not clear enough on it. But maybe talking with the captain of the jails, as we had done, that might be another good interview for you. That might be an interesting one, actually. And
The
with
jails
different
or the prisons,
No, I'm talking
or
about
both?
the jails.
Okay.
The jails. And talking to the jails and finding out about that, because this is what happens a lot of times when they get off their meds. That's when they end up back in the jail versus the prison. You know, they might be put on a hold, and so when they're left back out, they still don't have, you know, they've got catch up to do here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, like I said, that might be a real
It could
good
be,
interview
you know,
for you.
and thank you for that idea. I got so many ideas and emails on ideas and things like that, and I just got a very interesting letter, very mysterious little handwritten note in the mail 2 days ago that is prompting another issue that's coming up. So in any event, certain things just make too much sense, I guess.
Okay, in that, then let's go to another thing about making sense is, and I don't want to get on a bandwagon here, so I'm going to be very cautious, but a sex offender residency ordinance is a tough one to deal with, because what happens are, you know, at least what we're being told, is our people go underground then, and you no longer know who they are and where they are. That's one thing that I know when I did, worked with the APD in community relations and went out to a lot of neighborhoods and talked to them. That's one thing that we were very cautious about. We said, you don't want to tell your child, you know, you don't go to that house, or if you see that stranger or whatever, you run wherever and knock on a door, and you don't want to do that. Because you don't know who's at that other door,
Right,
you know,
right.
and so to be able to know where the person is and to be able to train and educate your child as to how to deal with things like that was so important. And the sex offender ordinance, you know, as far as living arrangements, can really cause, you know, some issues with that.
It causes a lot of issues, and I know that we were at one time, not we, but the city here in Oshkosh was at one time talking about that very kind of thing. And I had the sheriff and the police chief on the show at the time talking about why it wasn't a good idea. And I think that's why we don't have such an ordinance today.
It's good that you had that.
And, you know, I don't know why anyone in their right mind would approve an ordinance like that. And I know that it's not just, you know, bigger cities like Green Bay. It's smaller communities, too. You know, townships and very small communities. And when I say small, I'm talking about something as small as the size of Omro, for example. Now, I don't know if Omro specifically has that kind of a residency requirement or not, but I'm just using them for size comparison. You know, it doesn't behoove anyone to have something like that. You're doing your children, your citizens, a disservice, actually, by having a residency requirement.
Well, you really are, you know, and then, too, if you have, you know, all your resources right there to help this person that just got released, get better and become more of a community member, a positive community member, and you're saying you can't be here.
Right.
Basically, you have to be far away. And I can see where this can happen with some of the smaller than townships that are right outside of Green Bay, because otherwise everybody's going to move right, you know, a mile outside of the border, and we've got a new community set up.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's another frustration for many of them. I know we have several that do have a sex offense, and some are very serious sex offenses, and others are, how did this happen to you?
Well, and of course, my problem with the whole sex offender thing is it can be a boyfriend, girlfriend in high school, and something being very consensual, and they're just not really knowing, and one parent rats out the other kid or whatever, and before you know it, you've got a sex offense on your record. And, you know, I'm sorry. There's just, I could go on and on and on about that very kind of thing.
And we've seen a lot of that. And, you know, wearing the bracelet for life, ankle bracelet for life.
Yes. Yeah. You sent over some photos, and I want to go to those now and, take a look at what we're actually seeing here. So if we can just pull up the first photo, and now what are we seeing here?
Oh, that's one of our meetings. That's the Circles of Support meeting, a typical one, where we have, I think at this one we probably had about 6 participants and 5 or 6 volunteers as well, all blended together.
Okay.
And just talking. They have an opening where the facilitator will lead and, kind of go around the table where everybody does introductions. And then after that, they will talk about their past week and different things that were positive in it and things that might not have been. And they have one topic that they will discuss, especially if they see a trend of, a certain issue happening. And so they'll do that. But they also have share time where that's where I'm saying the other participants are just great. They'll say, hey, this animal vending place is now hiring, so you might want to get yourself over there.
Sure.
And
okay. Yeah. Let's go on to the next one and see what we have here. Oh. Well, that looks like you.
That's me in the middle. And on the Keith Wilk is, I mentioned his name earlier. He's our senior VP of programs and services. Great fellow to work with, and very, very passionate about all of our programs and services at Goodwill. And he's presenting an award to Sandy Sweeney, who's been with Circles of Support since almost the very beginning, and I think 6 months in.
Wow.
And she is great. She had received the Presidential Award, for volunteer hours, and I think that picture is after she had finished 1,000 hours that year of volunteering. Within that year. So,
all right.
She's a retired Department of Corrections.
Okay, good one to have involved in this program. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Looks like a party.
It is. We were celebrating our volunteers because they put in so much. When we do contracts and everything else, we're able to say how many volunteer hours, and I'm remiss in bringing that along right now, how many volunteer hours that they do put in. And so we do have, a summer picnic where we honor our volunteers, and then we nominate them for different events. And this was the for the Janet Berry Award with the Community Foundation, as well as a mentoring award for some of our volunteers.
Okay.
And yeah, so they were
very nice.
Invited to dinner.
And that's, I guess, what we have. So good. You had sent over like a volunteer application type thing too, but we were unable, because it was in a Word document, we were unable to get it up on the screen. But I know we've been, putting up your website address and the Facebook page as well.
Good.
And there's the phone number as well. And so people can, I didn't spend as much time on the Facebook page as I did the website, because that's where the majority of the information was. But people can go there, and there is a ton of information on your website. It's very nicely done. And frankly, even just the logo, I love the logo.
The circles.
Did someone within your organization locally create that? Or
oh gosh!
All right, I've stumped you.
Stumped me.
I come up with one question where I
should
stump
know
a guest.
the answer to that. Oh, I'm going to find out.
Well, whatever. I mean, it's a well done logo.
I don't know where it came from.
So
thank you. And when you say that, we just started out, and I had I went to Green Bay last night to their meeting, and we had given the first awards to participants for 1 year participation, 6 months, and 3 months. And I had brought the coins to this group and asked some of the participants, what do you think we should say on the back? And one of them says, the 1 year, and it says, stop the cycle. And Mike said, stop the cycle. I said, wow. And he's been such a success after being in and out of prison for years and years and years. And he is now 4 years out and working, has an apartment. It was a tough 2 years. So the first
Thank you for sharing that, because one of the questions that I had was, share with us a success story or two, or however many you have, but there's one where it sounds like, 4 years, that's a long time. Oh. That's a long time, especially when you're constantly being tempted. You know, I mean, even if you're not surrounding yourself with people anymore who are of that mindset, that criminal type mindset, the temptation, I would think, is still there.
Well, in the frustrations, because he too was in Green Bay and had a sex offense.
Oh, geez.
And so he stayed in a TLP, a temporary living place, and probation and community corrections were just wonderful in being able to extend him for quite a while in there while he was looking for a place to live and work. And finally, he did end up in the streets, you know, for a while in the worst weather and cold. And, you know, we gave him everything we could to keep him warm, but that was a tough one. So he had a lot of frustrations. It would have been very easy to go turn himself into jail and say, here, I drank a beer or whatever, just to get off the streets. But, you know, he stuck to it. He called his volunteers. We worked with him as much as we could and did as much as we could with him, and he's doing well right now. So, and not just him. We had a gal in our Fond du Lac group who had been struggling, and she went back to school. And when she went to school, she was able to get her degree for hairstyling. And for hairstyle, she needed to buy a kit in order to start work. And I know you're looking at Fond du Lac, right? You're saying, why? We're not in Fond du Lac any longer. But this was our Fond du Lac group, and she was able to get the kit with our support. And she's been working now for, I believe, 4 years in hairstyling, and she even gave back as far as offering some free haircuts to some of the participants.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
So
I know that you said earlier, Anne, that Goodwill will help to provide some jobs, but I'm sure that you're finding jobs for folks that are, you know, that are outside of Goodwill. What has been the reaction, the response from employers to the idea of employing someone who does have a criminal conviction on their record?
Totally depends on the company and on the record, you know, of the on the offense of the participant. We've had some that are very accepting, and others that they just don't need that much help to begin with. So they get a lot of applications and they'll just take off the top. We've got some temp agencies that have been wonderful. And a lot of our guys do work for temp agencies, and some are hired on from there, you know, after working with a temp agency. A lot of them go back to school, and this is something that we started 2 years ago. Foxville Attack and Goodwill formed a partnership, and it's called the Prosperity Center. Jessica, my suite mate, runs the Prosperity Center, and that is something that takes the person by the hand, walks them through any kind of financial aid, applications for school, testing. We'll take them out to the school and meet them there so that they're comfortable and work through everything. She's taken on, I think one of her first clients was one of our participants, and he did so great. He's got a CDL. He's been out now for about 2 years, because I think he started right with the Prosperity Center. So so that's a great partnership. And so once they show that, they've already been out, you know, on the streets for 2 years, and they've shown the successes that they can do, because he had to work part-time as well as go to school. And so they've been, you know, pretty accepting if they come out with their CDLs or different programs like that. Pretty accepting.
You had mentioned earlier World Work Program.
World of Work.
And we have, you know, a little bit of time here, not a lot. We're down to probably about 9.5 minutes. But, you know, tell us about the World of Work Program.
Well, what happened after we met with the Department of Community Corrections, you know, we said, well, we'd like to be able to, you know, look at more job experiences versus, you know, the driver's license. We can do that fairly easily. And they said, well, we'd really like you to do that too. Let's see what you can come up with for some more work experiences. And it was like a light bulb moment. And where are they having the most difficulty? Well, it's somebody with a sex offense, because they first come out, and you can understand the agent's hesitancy as well, as far as, well, should I prove them to be able to work here? Should I prove them? I just met them yesterday. You know, I don't know where they're at, and they might still be having some of their therapy and everything else. So with that, we decided to find a kind of a safe place. And it's at a WOW warehouse, WOW Logistics warehouse, and we have Goodwill bring in work there. And so we have participants, up to 6 participants working over there 20 hours a week with a vocational coordinator that's there. And the participants will do like first sort and this and that. They'll fix and repair bikes, and then the bikes, some of them go to the Circles program, and some of them are sold, and then they get brought back to us again. We fix them again. So if people have bikes to donate, definitely donate them to Goodwill. We'll fix them, repair them, and definitely use them. But so the guys in the work program do that, and there's a few other things that they're able to do as well. And that program can extend up to 6 months. The vocational coordinator, meanwhile, works with them. So during these 20 hours, they might have an hour off here and there that they'll work with her, and they'll do different things for the job, you know, job searches, and they might need to apply for certain kinds of benefits or different things that they need, or they might be running into some issues, and so she'll sit and talk with them on that. Every day that they come, and they work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they start out with a Circles group meeting before they get into work. So they have that as well, and which kind of sets the pace for the day, which is great. And it's been really successful. The agents are very happy with it because they're able to send somebody over there to work, and they can stop in if they want to. They usually don't, but they've got that ability to do that, and they know the guys are there working. They're making a bit of pocket money at the same time, so they're able to pay for their own bus. They're able to do this and that, and then as they start getting that income in, we'll also refer them to another program of Goodwill, which is FISC. So FISC will help them, you know, as far as their budgeting and everything else, and with that money that they have. And then if they get hired onto a full-time job, say 4 months into it, that's okay. They do not have to give us 2 weeks notice. Hey, we made it. We got to where we want to be.
Right.
And so then they'll move in, you know, to another job, and hopefully it all works out. Generally, it's been pretty good so far. And we can move somebody else into that program slot.
You know, you mentioned FISC, and what it's an acronym for is escaping me right now. And I'm not going to ask you unless you know, because I can see the look on your face. It's escaping you as well. But it is a whole financial advising kind of assistance. And, you know, it's because of, here again, everything fits.
It does.
It all fits in with Goodwill's umbrella mission, you know, and so you can just go through the program, and one program's offering one thing, your program's offering another, FISC is offering another, and they're all under the Goodwill umbrella.
They are.
And, you know, that's why it fits so beautifully with Goodwill.
It does. I love our program directors meetings. You can go around to the table. Oh, can you help me with this? Oh, I can do that. I can help you with that. You know, with each different programs, somehow, you know, we're interrelated, and you can help each other. We even had the Miracle League, which is wonderful too, the baseball league for the kids, and they were having a fundraiser and they needed some help one time. So some of our volunteers, you know, I put it out there, and they said, "Oh, we'd love to help one time, you know, for a couple hours," and they could help with that. So it's really a wonderful place to be.
It's kind of like a one-stop shop.
It is,
if you will.
It is. We even have the community health center housed, you know, right there. Family Services is back there. We've got the Hispanic chamber people are there. I mean, it's great.
I want to spend our last remaining couple of moments here talking about your needs as an organization. Of course, we talked about donations, financial, bikes, anything that someone's donating to Goodwill.
Right.
And again, if you're writing out a check or making some kind of a financial contribution and you want it to go specifically to this program, then just make note that it is for the Circles of Support program. What else do you need? Do you need volunteers?
Yes.
Okay.
We can always use volunteers.
Okay.
And Oshkosh has been the most difficult area to get volunteers for some reason.
Really?
We're not quite sure why yet. It is starting to grow now. We've
Okay.
got 2 groups in Oshkosh, Monday nights and Friday mornings.
Okay.
It is a weekly commitment to the meetings, as well as now, there's some up front with new participants that come in that we might need some extra help with as far as doing the intakes. You'll pair up with somebody else and go out and do an intake, and it's always in a public place. So we don't want any closed doors at all. And they might need help going to the Social Security office, the Driver's License Bureau, DVR to get set up, all sorts of things.
Okay.
And so we definitely need volunteers.
And there again, go on your website, and if we can put the website up again as I'm talking about this, go to the website. There we go. And there is, I'm trying to picture the website right now, and I believe that it's on the far right-hand side of the screen.
I think so too. But we're in the process right now
Of redoing it?
Yep.
Of course, now that I say that. Just go to the website and, find a volunteer application. And while you're there, look around and look at, what the program is really all about, because there's so much more than what Anne and I have been able to cover in the last 55 minutes or so. What other needs do you have?
Oh, we always have needs. Christmas time, we've been adopted by Thrivent, or a group from Thrivent with the Lutheran Brotherhood, and they've been wonderful, giving us backpacks each year with some hygiene products in it and things like that. And I've got a separate little community circles closet within Goodwill. They say it's Anne's Goodwill closet. And so I've got this little closet that the volunteers can come in and pull from too. And the hygiene products are really important for us. We need that, and we need bikes. We always need more bikes to fix for things. And Christmas time especially is really nice to get adopted. I don't know if we're going to be again next year, if they're going to be able to do that another year yet. And so warm socks, those are things, that they need. Underwear, things that you just don't think about,
On
but
your
they
website,
come
do you
out
have a
and they
wish
don't
list?
have. It's in the process.
Okay, because
It's in
that
the
would be a good
process.
thing.
Right,
that would
right.
Be a very good
but
thing.
if you think about it, if they think about people that are coming out and they might end up on the streets, even if they do the warming shelter at night, they're on the streets. They need something warm, and that means not just a hand knit hat with, it needs to have liners.
Yeah.
We need warm clothing and
Yeah.
warm things like that. So
Okay. Excellent.
can I read you one thing here?
I'm sorry, we don't have time. No, seriously, we are out of town. We're out of time.
I thought we had 9 minutes.
No, that was 9 minutes ago. What is it, real quickly? Let me just see what it is.
Okay,
what
this is just, while in prison, this fellow went through a divorce, and he's just wrote
this is a real quick
letter.
thing. I'm just going to read it.
You don't even have to read it all.
whom? I was in prison for my 7th OWI. While in prison, I went through a divorce. I was an emotional wreck on medication for anxiety, depression, and high blood pressure. I worked hard while in prison. I got off all medications and took every program that was afforded. While in a business communications class, an instructor encouraged me to finish my degree when I got out. And I don't have time to read the rest, but basically they started their life over at the age of 58, and it's a happy ending story.
Another one.
And the very last sentence is, it is the circles of support that has given me the support I needed when I needed it the most. So that is probably one of the best testimonials that you could get. And I'm sorry I couldn't read the whole thing.
No, that was good.
But anyway, we are out of time. Thank you so very much for being here. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for giving us
Continued
a
best of
chance.
luck with the program. Check out the website and the Facebook page if you'd like to find out more information or get involved in this. And if you're watching this in some other part of the country, see if there is a Circles of Support type program where you are located that you might get involved with. Thank you again. Thanks to the crew, thanks to you at home, and we will see you next time. Until then, keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.